There is a silent weight many people carry, not in their hands, but in their minds. It is the past. The past itself is not what traps you. It has no power on its own. It is finished, complete, untouched by anything you think or feel about it now. What keeps it alive is your attachment to it. The way you hold on to memories, replay moments, and give energy to something that no longer exists in reality. You return to certain experiences again and again, not because they are happening, but because your mind has not released them. A single moment can live inside you for years if you keep feeding it with attention. The more you revisit it, the more real it feels, until it begins to shape your emotions, your decisions, and even your identity. You may tell yourself that you are thinking about the past to understand it, to fix it, or to find closure. But look closely. Most of the time, it is not understanding you are seeking. It is control. You want a different ending. You want to rewrite what has already been written. And because that is not possible, the mind becomes restless, repeating the same loop without resolution. Attachment often disguises itself in different forms. Sometimes it appears as regret, wishing you had acted differently, spoken differently, chosen differently. Other times it appears as resentment, holding on to what someone did to you, replaying their actions, keeping the pain fresh. And sometimes it appears as longing, missing what once was, idealizing it, refusing to accept that it is no longer here. In each case, the past is not holding you. You are holding it. This attachment creates a subtle illusion. It makes you believe that your life is still connected to those moments, that they define who you are today. But in truth, every moment you are alive is new. The only reason the past feels present is because you keep bringing it into the present through your thoughts. Notice how this works. A memory arises, and instead of letting it pass, you engage with it. You analyze it, judge it, react to it. One thought leads to another, and soon you are no longer here. You are somewhere behind, reliving something that cannot be changed. Your body may be in the present, but your mind is elsewhere, and where the mind goes, your experience follows. This is why two people can go through similar events, yet one moves forward while the other remains stuck. The difference is not in what happened, it is in how tightly they hold on to it. One allows the experience to pass through them. The other builds a story around it and continues to live inside that story. Letting go does not mean denying what happened. It does not mean pretending it was easy or insignificant. It means seeing clearly that holding on to it is no longer necessary. It means recognizing that the pain is not coming from the past itself, but from your continued attachment to it. When you begin to observe your thoughts, instead of immediately believing them, something shifts. You start to see that memories are just mental events. They come and go, like clouds passing through the sky. They only stay when you hold on to them. And in that realization, you begin to loosen your grip. even if just a little at first. With less attachment, the past starts to lose its weight. It becomes quieter, less demanding, less present in your daily life. Not because it has changed, but because your relationship to it has changed. And in that space, you begin to experience something that was always available, but often overlooked. The simplicity and freedom of being here, now. The past can be a teacher, but only if you know how to listen without becoming trapped in the lesson. Many people confuse learning with reliving. They return to old experiences again and again, believing they are growing from them when, in reality, they are only strengthening the emotional hold those moments have over them. To learn from the past means to extract its meaning and then step forward, not to sit inside it and replay it endlessly. There is a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection is calm, clear, and purposeful. It looks at what happened, understands the lesson, and then lets it go. Rumination, on the other hand, is repetitive and emotional. It circles the same thoughts without resolution, keeping you stuck in a cycle that feels active but leads nowhere. When you truly learn from an experience, you do not need to revisit it constantly. The lesson becomes part of you. It shapes your awareness, your choices, your behavior. It becomes quiet wisdom rather than loud memory. You no longer need to think about it all the time because it has already done its work. But when you live in the past, you keep reopening the same chapter as if it has not ended. You analyze every detail, question every decision, and imagine different outcomes. This creates the illusion that something is still unfinished. Yet, the only thing unfinished is your willingness to move on from it. Learning requires honesty. It asks you to look at what happened without distortion. Not to blame yourself endlessly and not to avoid responsibility either. Just to see clearly, what did this experience show you about your choices, your boundaries, your reactions? What can you carry forward that will help you grow? Once you see the lesson, there is nothing more to take. Holding on to the emotional weight of the experience does not deepen your understanding. It only drains your energy. The mind may tell you that if you let go, you might forget the lesson or repeat the mistake. But real learning does not depend on emotional pain. It depends on awareness. Consider how you learn any skill. You make a mistake, you recognize it, you adjust, and then you move on. You do not sit there reliving the mistake for hours, days, or years. You trust that the correction has been made. The same principle applies to your life experiences. When you allow the past to become a place of learning rather than living, your relationship with it changes. It becomes lighter. You can look back without being pulled back. You can remember without being controlled by what you remember. The experience remains, but the emotional grip begins to loosen. This shift requires discipline of attention. When the mind tries to return to old stories without purpose, you gently bring it back, not with force, not with frustration, but with awareness. You remind yourself that you have already taken what you needed from that moment. There is nothing more to gain by staying there. Over time, this practice creates clarity. You begin to see that growth is not found in revisiting the same pain, but in applying what you have learned to the present. Each new moment becomes an opportunity to act with greater understanding, to respond differently, to choose more wisely. The past then becomes what it was always meant to be: a guide, not a home. Many people wait for time to heal them. They believe that if enough days pass, the pain will naturally fade. The memories will lose their intensity, and they will somehow feel ready to move forward. But time by itself does not heal. Time only passes. What truly changes your inner state is the decision you make within that time. You can carry the same pain for years if you never decide to release it. You can replay the same story again and again, strengthening it each time until it feels like a permanent part of who you are. In this way, time becomes a container for your attachment, not a solution to it. It is not the number of days that matters, but what you choose to do with them. Healing begins the moment you become aware that holding on is no longer serving you, but awareness alone is not enough. There must be a clear and conscious decision. A point where you say to yourself that you are no longer willing to carry this weight in the same way. This decision is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, firm, and internal. It does not depend on anyone else. It does not wait for closure, apology, or perfect understanding. Without this decision, the mind will continue its Privichni pattern. It will revisit the past, justify the attachment, and keep you in a loop that feels familiar. Even if it is painful, the mind prefers what it knows, even when it hurts, because it feels safe in its repetition. Breaking this pattern requires intention. It requires you to step out of what is automatic and choose something different. When you decide to let go, it does not mean the thoughts will immediately disappear. It does not mean you will never feel the emotion again. What changes is your relationship to those thoughts and feelings. Instead of following them, you begin to observe them. Instead of feeding them, you allow them to pass. The decision creates a boundary within you, a clear line between what you will engage with and what you will no longer entertain. This is where many people become confused. They expect that once they decide to move on, everything should feel easy. And when it does not, they assume they are not ready or that more time is needed. But the presence of difficulty does not mean the decision is wrong. It simply means the habit is still strong. And habits do not disappear instantly. They weaken through consistent non-participation. Each time the past arises and you choose not to engage with it, you strengthen your decision. Each time you redirect your attention to the present, you create a new pattern. This is how healing actually unfolds. not through waiting, but through repeated choice. There is also a form of responsibility in this process. As long as you believe that time alone will fix everything, you remain passive. You place your growth outside of your control. But when you understand that moving on is a decision, you reclaim that control. You realize that your freedom does not depend on circumstances aligning perfectly. It depends on your willingness to stop holding on to what has already ended. This decision does not erase the past, but it removes its authority over your present. It allows you to step out of the role of someone who is defined by what happened and into the role of someone who chooses what happens next. Most people do not realize how much space the past occupies within them. It is not visible, yet it fills the mind with noise, the body with tension, and the heart with heaviness. Thoughts about what happened, what should have happened, and what could have been continue to circulate, leaving little room for anything new to enter. This inner clutter becomes so familiar that it starts to feel normal. When you begin to release the past, even slightly, you start to notice this space. At first, it may feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. The mind is used to being busy, to holding onto stories and emotions. Without them, there can be a sense of emptiness. But this emptiness is not a problem. It is potential. Space is necessary for growth. Just as a crowded room cannot receive anything new, a crowded mind cannot experience clarity, creativity, or peace. When you let go of what no longer belongs to the present, you are not losing something valuable. You are making room for something that has not yet arrived. This space allows you to see more clearly. When the mind is not constantly pulled back into old memories, it becomes quieter. In that quietness, your perception sharpens. You begin to respond to life as it is, rather than through the filter of what has already happened. Situations that once triggered strong reactions begin to feel lighter because they are no longer connected to unresolved emotions from the past. Releasing the past also creates emotional space. When you are holding on to pain, regret, or resentment, these emotions occupy your inner world. They influence how you feel, how you think, and how you interact with others. By letting go, you are not denying these emotions. You are allowing them to move through you instead of staying trapped within you. As they pass, they leave behind a sense of openness. In this openness, new experiences can take root. You become more available, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. You can engage with people without projecting old stories onto them. You can take opportunities without being held back by previous failures. You can appreciate moments without comparing them to what once was. Growth naturally follows this space. It does not need to be forced. When there is less inner resistance, your energy is no longer tied up in maintaining old patterns. It becomes available for learning, creating, and evolving. You may notice that your thoughts become more constructive. your actions more intentional, your presence more grounded. Peace also emerges in this space, not as something you chase, but as something that reveals itself when there is less disturbance within, when the mind is not constantly revisiting the past, it settles. This stillness is not empty in a negative sense. It is full in a different way. It carries a sense of ease, a quiet stability that does not depend on external conditions. There is also a deeper sense of freedom that comes with this release. When you are no longer defined by what has happened, you are free to redefine yourself in each moment. Your identity becomes less rigid, less tied to old experiences. You are no longer the person who was hurt, who failed, or who lost something. You are simply the one who is here now, with the ability to choose, to act, and to move forward. As this space expands, life begins to feel different. Not because the outside world has changed, but because your inner world is no longer crowded with what has already passed. The present moment is often overlooked because it feels ordinary. The mind is drawn to what is already known or what might happen next, rarely settling on what is here right now. Yet everything you experience, everything you can influence, exists only in this moment. The past is memory, the future is imagination, but the present is real. When you begin to understand this, you see where your power actually lies. It is not in trying to change what has already happened, and it is not in controlling what has not yet come. It is in how you meet this moment, how you think, how you act, how you respond right now. The past may try to pull your attention back through familiar thoughts and emotions. It presents old stories, old identities, old reactions if you are not aware. You follow these patterns automatically. You react in the same way, feel the same way, and unknowingly recreate the same internal experience again and again. In this way, the past appears to continue, not because it is still happening, but because it is being repeated in the present. The moment you bring awareness to this process, something shifts. You begin to notice the space between a thought and your reaction to it. In that space, there is choice. You are no longer bound to respond the same way. You can see the thought for what it is, a mental event, and decide whether to engage with it or let it pass. This is where real change begins, not in some distant future, but in these small, immediate choices. Each time you choose not to follow an old pattern, you weaken it. Each time you respond with clarity instead of habit, you strengthen a new way of being. These changes may seem subtle at first, but over time they reshape your entire experience. Focusing on the present does not mean ignoring the past or neglecting the future. It means not allowing them to dominate your attention. You can remember without becoming lost. You can plan without becoming anxious. The present becomes the anchor, the place you return to again and again. There is also a simplicity in the present that the mind often resists. It is direct, uncomplicated, and free from the narratives that the mind creates. When you are fully here, even briefly, you may notice a sense of calm that does not come from solving problems, but from not being entangled in them. This calm is not something you create. It is something you uncover when the mental noise settles. Living in the present also changes how you relate to yourself. Instead of seeing yourself through the lens of past experiences, you begin to experience yourself as you are now. This allows for a kind of renewal. You are not fixed, not limited to what has already happened. Each moment offers a fresh starting point, a chance to act differently, to see differently. As you continue to return to the present, your openness, you become more attentive to your thoughts, your emotions, your surroundings. Life feels less like something you are chasing or escaping from, and more like something you are participating in fully. The power of the present is quiet but constant. It does not demand attention, yet it is always available. The more you recognize it, the less influence the past begins to have. Not because it disappears, but because your attention is no longer rooted there. Instead, it rests here where your life is actually unfolding. And now you stand at a quiet but powerful point in your life, not at the end of something, not at the beginning of something new. The past has taken what it needed from you. The lessons are already within you. There is nothing left there that you need to carry forward. So, why continue holding it? Right now, in this moment, you have a choice, not a complicated one, not a distant one, a simple, honest choice to release, to step forward, to begin again. You don't need to wait for the perfect time. You don't need everything to make sense. Look, you don't need permission from anyone. All you need is willingness. Willingness to stop looking back. Willingness to trust the present. Willingness to move, even if the steps feel small. Because every step you take forward weakens the past and strengthens the person you are becoming. So take a breath. Feel where you are, not where you were, not where you think you should be, just here. And from this place, move, not with fear, not with doubt, with quiet certainty that your life is not behind you. It is in front of you, and it begins the moment you decide it does.